So, what do you get when you take Mario N64, Alice in Wonderland, and a whole lot of psychedelics and mix them in a bubbling cauldron? You get something like Pluto's Island. Pluto's Island follows the story of a little wizard boy named Pluto. He wasn't always a wizard though. One day, walking through the forest, he stumbled upon a little white flower that promised him power. Little did he know this would put him in the service of a devil, collecting souls for them and feeding them to a volcano. I would describe this game as an action-adventure 3D platformer. Quick pause. Recently, I've been in touch with some independent game developers, and many have asked me to review their game, this being one of them. A lot of these games have only a handful of players, so in the true spirit of my channel, I'm giving these truly hidden gems what spotlight my little channel can offer. Are they gems or are they garbage? Let's get into it and find out. The visual style and design of the levels you play in are really simple, which is a big hint this was a solo dev project. Many of the platforms are plain cubes. The designs for the monsters have some variety, but are simple as well and get reused a lot in later levels. The devil, Yaphet, looks pretty cool, though he's flat as a board. But what really stands out to me are the portraits for the NPCs. They're surprisingly complex and detailed compared to the three-dimensional designs, and they appear to be hand-drawn, which I like. The only thing that bothers me visually is the projectiles from attacks from enemies and Pluto. They can easily flood the screen and make it hard to see. The creator describes this game as psychedelic, and I'm getting that vibe, from the colors used to the weird monster designs and humor throughout the game. The music in this game is honestly pretty good. The title music is low-key a banger. The tracks are basic but very whimsical, adding more depth to the fantastical nature of the world Pluto has found himself in. I don't have much to say about the sound effects. For both Pluto and enemy attacks, they reuse the same sound effects and they get old pretty quickly, but it does fill the silence. That's where the nice things I have to say end. The core gameplay of this game just isn't great. I'm not saying that to be mean, but critical and fair. The gameplay is simple. To the bottom left, you see your health and mana meters. Your mana drains when you use each of your magical abilities: Magic Shot, Magic Blade, and Magic Rain. Magic Shot shoots projectiles in the direction you're facing, not where the camera is looking. This made the combat hard in a lot of cases, to the point where I barely ever used this ability. I would try to run away and would have to dead stop and manually turn completely around to attack, which resulted in enemies getting in a lot of free hits on me. The second ability, Magic Blade, creates a kind of spinning projectile that rotates around the point that it's summoned. This was really handy for clearing out swarms when I would get surrounded, or for hitting enemies that were chasing me when I couldn't afford to stop and turn to use Magic Shot. Lastly, you have Magic Rain. This is your only ability on cooldown, and when you use it, a bunch of projectiles rain down all around you, dealing a lot of damage. 99% of my gameplay experience consisted of spamming Magic Blade because Magic Shot was too hard to use and used way too much mana in comparison. It's not fun to run around and spam one button and pray that I kill everything else before it kills me. I mean, just look at how slowly you gain back mana normally. It's virtually impossible to consistently use Magic Shot and keep distance. And when you die, you lose all of your current temporary buffs you have, so you go back to having the regen speed of a snail's pace. You can even see in the game's trailer that they use Magic Blade almost exclusively. You would think Magic Shot would be more important because getting too close to enemies is almost certain death. Your only means of putting distance between you and your enemies is the dash ability that shrinks you down and makes you move a little faster. Only thing is that this also drains your mana, albeit slowly. As for the platforming, it also leaves a little bit to be desired. The level designs feel like platforming is an afterthought. You have a glide ability, but you can't use it while you're over solid ground. Even then, sometimes it doesn't work reliably over thin air. I think you should be able to use it as long as you're high enough up in the air. There are bounce pads, and if you sprint into them, you can get some more distance. I don't have much else to say about platforming. It isn't remarkable. If anything, it just frustrated me and padded out the game time because every time you fall off the map, you respawn to the beginning of the map on almost every level, and there's almost no respawn points. Moving on, as you explore levels, you'll find these little chests, and these will contain a soul that gives a buff of some kind. Defensive boosts, speed boosts, max mana increased, lifesteal, and several others, but you get the idea. Enemies also have a chance to drop these as well. These are souls that you need to collect to feed into the mountain, 999 to be precise. There are no level ups from gaining experience or anything like that. Instead, you find these badges around the world and you put them in a slot to gain a buff to buff certain traits. You unlock different upgradable traits from finding and waking up the gods of the island from the different areas on said island. I ended up getting way more badges than I needed, as when you die and restart, the badges respawn in the level. So I was unintentionally farming them on the first level, Swamp. Well, I was knowingly picking them up, I just had no intention of farming them until I realized after a few times that this worked consistently. Whether this was intentional or an oversight, it worked out for me in my favor. Another major complaint I have about the gameplay is the damage you take isn't based on an enemy's attack, and if it hits you, it's based on how many of the several projectiles they throw out hit you. This made for some cool moments where I was able to dodge, and by dodge I mean casually walk out of the way and somehow miss it, but it's literally impossible to dodge everything when you have a horde of enemies right on your tail, ready to blast you when you get close, and you have to use Magic Blade to get them within a melee distance. Some have abilities that spray out like a shotgun blast, and if you're unlucky enough to be in the way, you might just get one shot. But you have to be within melee range of them to use your Magic Blade ability because you'll have no mana if you keep using Magic Shot. This only gets worse on the last level, Risington. In this level, you have to get enough souls from each stage before you can move on to the next. There aren't enough chests in each stage to give you enough souls to move on, so you're forced to farm them, and they have a random chance of spawning from an enemy's death. Theoretically, it could be done quickly, but I was never this lucky and I died so many times trying to get enough. It was at this level, level 6, that I nearly quit this game, but I persevered for the sake of the review. Only for the review. I wasn't having fun anymore. Whenever I beat a level, I didn't get a sense of accomplishment. I felt relief. I felt like, thank God, this level is almost over, so I'm one step closer to being through this game. Even when you beat the final level, you still have to farm up to 999 souls if you don't have them already. Reaching this arbitrary number felt pointless and frustrating. The number of souls shouldn't matter. The game should progress to the final stages based on the story beat. Lastly, at the time of this review, you can't even beat the game due to a bug in the final act. I've awoken all the gods of the island and tediously grinded for 999 souls to no avail. I contacted the dev about this and they said they're working on a fix, but I got tired of waiting and wanted to publish this so I can move on to the next video. I spent too much time playing this game, collecting footage, writing the script to not publish this video before coming out with the next. Unlike this video, this game is nowhere near finished. I was honestly shocked to see that the developer is charging $15 for this game. I don't make games, but I can understand that it's a long, difficult process to make one. This game is of an impressive scale for being a solo project, but it needs more time in the oven before charging that much money for it. It's like going to a bakery and buying a cake, and when you take it home and cut into it, there's still pockets of flour that didn't get fully mixed in. You go into it with a certain expectation that it's going to be a tasty cake from how pretty it looks, but when you take a bite, you're pretty disappointed. Again, I don't mean this to hurt anyone's feelings or to tell you that you should quit game development, just that if you're a game developer, you need to make sure your product is actually ready before releasing it. Thanks for watching, and tune in for the next time for another hidden indie.